Okay, so I have about half of my candy box already shaded. So kind of about this much is as far as I've gone. And there's still a few little details that still need to be touched up here. But I wanted you to be able to compare. This right here has probably total about 6 different layers of colors in it. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through how I got there on this bottom part down here. In class together, we've already picked out whatever your background color is. And that was all that you were supposed to color up to this point, was just whatever this main background color was. For some of you, you might have had one main color here and then a different color beyond that. So you might have two big colors. But for the most part, we're going with what the majority of the box is, what wraps to the edges of your box. That's your main color. And we're gonna start there. I found, for me, this color, bronze yellow, was the closest thing to my box's color. So that's what I started with. We talked about last time in class, just the really small circular motions with the pencil turned on its side, to just give a nice light layer of texture all over. Just a base for your colored pencil. It needs to still have some tooth of the paper showing so that it has something that it can grab to. You will notice up here that I can still see a little bit of the paper. Let's zoom in really close so you can see that. But it's getting less and less, okay? As we get to the final layers, we're gonna do something called burnishing, which is gonna make it totally become colored pencil wax, and no more paper at all will show, okay? But once you've reached that point, the paper really can't take any more wax to it. So let's start building these layers, and we're gonna look a lot at shadows and highlights. So let's start with, I had some shadows on my box. I'm gonna just kind of sketch them in here so that you can really see well what we're talking about. Let's zoom in a little bit. And my shadows on my picture, I would definitely be working from a picture at this point if I were you. I see a nice dark shadow here. Let's put that in a color that you can see. I see a shadow here. I see a shadow here. I see a value scale of like maybe a 6 down to about a 3 here. Okay, it kind of jogs in like this. So this whole shape is all a shadow. I see some dark to light value shading here and here. I see a value scale here. Okay, it kind of goes like this on that one. So it starts dark and it goes light as it comes out. Same thing here, dark to light. So you need to pause for just a second. We're just looking at the face of your box. Take a picture of it if you haven't. Put it in your Chromebook like we have done in the past with Pixlr. If you need to literally draw over the top of it to help you recognize where those darks and lights are at, do that. We're gonna pause. Okay, so now that you have located where your dark areas are, we're gonna go ahead and start placing some of those in our picture. So whatever your color is, this is where you're gonna need an understanding of the color wheel. Wherever your color falls on the color wheel, you're gonna move in closer into more of a value of that color. So it's going to go up a notch in darkness. And this goes back to what we just studied with watercolor. Tints and shades are going to come here within the darkness, shade, tint, lighter. Add white, add black. So those are going to be utilized. You're also going to use neighboring colors on the color wheel. Red violet, if your box is red, red orange, to pull out some more of the highlights, okay, or more of the shadows within your picture. So you've got a couple different options, and there's a lot of different ways that it can turn out right. So for my shadow, my first color that I used was a little bit of this light brown. So I'm laying a little bit of that down in my darker areas. Again, working in really small, okay, because my box fell probably, let's say right here on a yellow. So I've just pushed it a little bit farther and over one to get to this brown color for my shadow. I'm kind of staying right here within this range, okay? So you pick what is your darker color that's close to your original color, but going to make things a little bit darker. And if you are in question, grab a piece of scratch paper, color your original color down. Just a little spot. And then lay over the top of it what you think is going to be a nice shadow color, and see how they play together. Don't totally cover it, go for like a dark to light, and see if you like how those look together, okay? I think that's a good shadow color. I'm actually gonna have more than just one. I'm still building in very, very light layers. I'm not going real dark here. I'm gonna speed up the video so that you can just kind of see how this works out. Your actual shading should not be rushed. Just take your time, but for the sake of the video, go ahead and finish watching me shade out this part, and then I want you to match your shadows on your picture. Okay, so I've just finished my second layer on the front of my box with that light brown, kind of adding in all of the shadows that I've identified everywhere. And you can tell we haven't gone back to that gold color yet. Now it's kind of taken on a brown cast down here. I need to go ahead and push my shadows a little bit farther now. So within this area right in here, see how the shadow gets really dark right in this area, and right in that corner it gets really dark, and along that edge it gets really dark. Here's how I'm going to bring up that intensity. Right there it's really dark. Those are all like maybe 6s on a value scale, so I need to represent that in my picture. So what I'm going to do, I need to go with something that's really going to be kind of a strong and impactful color. So since this is yellow, I'm going to move across the color wheel. I'm going to go into a purple. Okay, because we know opposites make the color a lot darker and richer. Cool colors typically work excellent for shadows and for deepening any of your colors in colored pencil. So I'm gonna come in, it's gonna feel a little bit weird, but I'm gonna throw some purple into this darkest area because I want a nice deep shadow, but at the edges, I'm gonna blend it out. Always working in my circles. No lines, and that color is just going to start to disappear. Okay, you're just hardly putting any pressure on this for starters, and fade it out. Always looking at my reference picture. That's one layer. Now I'm coming back with a second layer to push it just a little bit darker right up here along the edge. Okay, start to see any lines, feather it out. Now that color is starting to come up. You're really starting to see that shadow. Let's go up into this corner right here and put a little bit of a heavier value right through there. also making sure that when I get up close to the edge, I'm using the tip of my pencil to maintain a really crisp edge. And then I flip to my circles to smooth everything out. Crisp edge, smooth it all out. You're going to be dancing between a very sharp pencil for detail work and finding a nice blunt spot on the pencil, a part that's kind of flat, for doing more smooth shading work, just like we do with graphite. And I'm blending that out, okay? Just really soft, smooth transitions. Think of this as like an undercoat. Underneath, we're gonna put the yellow back in just a minute, but right now we've got to pull out those shadows. I'm gonna come down along this bottom edge corner and pull out this shadow real quickly. And sometimes it might feel like they're hard to, the shadows are maybe hard to identify or hard to see. Kind of just go for common sense on, if this whole side of the box is shadowed, it probably makes sense that you're gonna push that shadow a little bit farther down on this edge. It's also gonna provide a little crisp edge when it comes to the white paper against the box. And we're just gonna gradually blend that out. When I say 7 layers, it's not like we're coloring the whole box in 7 layers. So the layers tend to go pretty quick once you have that base coat down. Okay, now let's jump over to this area. It's pretty even color in through there. I would say almost it's more of a highlight. So I'm gonna stay away from my purple on that side. I'm gonna lightly lay down a little bit of purple right in through this area, because I feel like this whole edge of my box is darker than that one. That's lighter. This is a notch or two up from that. And you should be coloring along with me at this point, or you can watch this little section all the way through and then pause. Do not be afraid to turn your paper if you need to get a crisp edge. And you need to turn your paper to get a crisp edge. Don't be afraid of doing that. All right, take a minute, pause the video, finish out shadows, and then we will come back and add another layer. Okay, now we're ready for, what is this? Maybe our 4th layer. The thing that I noticed as I add my purple in and as I worked this area up here is there's a richness of color, a warmth to this box. It's yellow is a warm color to begin with, and I can kind of see almost little undertones of red within the background of my box. So to kind of balance out this purple, I'm gonna now add a little bit of red to just kind of help warm this up. It's just gonna be a really soft, light layer of red. You might be questioning why we're using so many colors at this point. Colored pencil is very similar to paint in that the more undercoats you put underneath the top layer, the more rich, realistic, and vibrant your picture is going to look. If you just put down one layer of paint, you're gonna get a very flat color. Colored pencil mixes like paint,